John, in today's National Post, you wrote about Quebec's Charbonneau Commission. What was that all about?
Charbonneau Commission is this commission that's been operating for 3 years in Quebec. It hasn't got a ton of attention in the rest of Canada, but it's had huge significance in Quebec because it's laid bare all of the corrupt underpinnings of the construction industry, public works, the way all kinds of public projects are commissioned and paid for in Quebec. And it turns out a lot of money has been kicked back to politicians, and a lot of money has ended up in the pockets of the mafia.
Do you think its work will have any effect? It's sort of coming to its end now. What do you think the outcome will be?
The final report is due next year, and I think it's going to have a huge effect because it's essentially the Quebec equivalent of a lot of the upheaval that took place 10 years ago federally around the sponsorship scandal. All sorts of new laws were brought in federally in order to control corruption. And in Quebec, you're already seeing new laws that have been brought in. So if you start a construction company and you want to bid on public works, it isn't just some shell company you have. They actually look beyond the shell company. They look at who are the principals. If it's someone who's been convicted of a crime, you are excluded from public works. They've cleaned up a lot of the shenanigans that were being used basically to let a couple of dozen gangsters control a lot of the public works trade. And I think already there's been a lot of payback in terms of reform legislation, and Quebec is catching up gradually to the rest of the country in terms of transparency and accountability in public works.
So in terms of those shenanigans that you talk about, what was your sort of favorite disclosure thus far?
Over the last 3 years of the Commission's work, my favorite character so far is Niccolo Miliotto, and he appeared in front of the Commission. It turns out that on 236 occasions he had been allegedly photographed going into a notorious East End Montreal mob hangout, which he explained by saying that it happened to be next door to his favorite butcher, so it was very convenient for him. Also, on one occasion, he was allegedly filmed giving stacks of cash to a famous mafiosi in Montreal. And when he was asked to explain that, he said he was just giving money to celebrate a Sicilian cultural event in Montreal.
Well, that's completely understandable then. What
Yeah.
a charitable guy.
Yeah, and actually I think there's going to be more Sicilian cultural events in Montreal, but thanks to the Charbonneau Commission, the money might actually go to the event rather than to the organizers.
Oh, that's a nice change.
Yes.